talked about this at great length and detail. If we're going to have a new bull market, Bitcoin's got to clear this level and never look back. Well, it keeps failing. It's failed 3 times now to try to clear this area. So right now we're watching, do we make another attempt? Is it successful? Does it fail? Or is that all she wrote and we end up getting a lower high and a lower low and break this level? Even if we get a big rally, it still might end up being something that looks like this, as I've talked about, or something that looks like this. Here we had this failed breakout, and here we had this peak where we put it a peak, turned down, turned back up, put it a peak, turned down, turned back up, and in both of those cases you got a reversal. Do we get something like that here? If you do, then you've got risk of getting a triple top here, and if you can break out and get a legitimate breakout, well, then you've got a bull market. But so far, Bitcoin is failing to confirm the breakout above the 69,000 area. To do it right here, we did it on very light volume. Got a hanging man just over 2 weeks ago. Got a hanging man. It failed to get confirmed, so you could still try to make your way back up there, just like the candlestick over here was not confirmed. So again, that's a bullish event. But if we confirm the hanging man this week, closing below it, which we're right now, we're below it, then you've got a potential reversal on your hands if you get a lower high, lower low. So we'll be watching to see what happens here. But this is now our 3rd week down here. And again, about 18% or so, or just under that now, off of the high over here. This low right here was just under 18%. We're just above that right now. So just a little bit above that. It's more like 15 or 16% or something like that. But we'll be watching. Do we take out this level or not, or do we bounce? We'll see what happens. If we bounce, do we go back and we challenge the resistance zone, which are these 2 highs now? And again, I showed you what has to happen for Bitcoin to go higher. I showed you what has to happen for it to go lower. You got to take out support. You got to rebound above the resistance levels I talked about on the daily chart for a rally. Are a lot of things that are suggesting that Bitcoin is forming a top around this 69,000 area. And again, I know people don't want to that, but there is evidence of that, and we are struggling to clear the 69,000 area. This is Tether. This is a stable coin. This is Tether dominance, okay? And Bitcoin is going to have, and crypto is going to continue to have a bull market. We need to break that trend line right there. This trend line right here has marked the tops for Bitcoin. Over here in 2017, December 2017, it marked the top over here, and I don't have my arrow straight above it, but you can see what I'm talking about right there. Again, this peak right here marked that top, and we have moved into the new bull market for Bitcoin in 2019 into 2020. Bitcoin corrected, and we bounced right here. And again, and I didn't mark it, I should, there again with 2020, we went down to a new low. We ended up dropping 71%. Little, it doesn't look as extreme with both windows here, both of these charts, but again, you could see, I've shown the chart, the weekly time frame. It was a 71% drop. We had the move higher. Bitcoin rose up to a new high in 2021, the first quarter there, I believe it was in March or April. And again, right here, we formed a top with Bitcoin, and we hit this trend line again. Look at the trend line. You just keep hitting it over and over. I'm going to mark that 2020 low, even though we didn't reach it. We moved towards it and didn't quite reach it, just shy of that level. But it did mark the 2020 peak there and the drop that happened. And we dropped 71% off of from the previous peak. Again, it marked a top here in the first part of 2021. It marked the second peak right here. And then we saw the bottom fall out of Bitcoin. It dropped 78%. We saw Tether rise. It peaked, Bitcoin bottomed, and Bitcoin rallied up at this trend line again. And we're right at overhead resistance. We start clearing this level. It's the 5% level here. If we start clearing this level, Bitcoin will drop and likely peak. So again, bulls want to see this trend line break. Our scenario is that we are now bouncing off this trend line and a major top. Now we could come back to the trend line again. You know, we danced around it here a little bit, danced around it in 2017 a little bit. But if this trend line holds, again, it could be marking another major top for Bitcoin, and that would be a triple top. I'll talk more about that later in the video. Could be suggesting a top around the Bitcoin halving. Everybody believes that, I've been on social media and I've been looking, person after person is saying that the halving is now, it's going to cause us to soar. If we can get above 69,000 and stay above it and break this trend line right here with tether dominance, then you can go higher. But if we don't, then the opposite, what nobody thinks is possible, is a potential top. Just like nobody thought that the Bitcoin could possibly go down over here. Reach the peak at 69,000. And the same thing when we reach 60,000. Again, now we're just above 60,000. You got people out there saying we're never going below 60,000 again, going below 50,000 again, and all these other things. But I'm just telling you, look, if this trend line holds, then you've got a pretty good shot that you're forming a top with Bitcoin as these other points right here marked tops. Now, these were tops in the beginning of the bull market. These were tops at the end of the bull runs, as well as over here, the end of the bull run in December of 2017. So again, I'm just telling you, look, the evidence is showing that we're bouncing here. There is a strong possibility that Bitcoin is forming a top. It may not be done yet. We still may go put in a higher high, like we did with these tops over here, or getting a lower high if we start breaking down right now. This is very problematic for a bullish case that we're bouncing off of this trend line right here with the tether dominance. I mean, you can see the bounce as clear as I can. Nobody believes it's possible that a top happens. I'm watching. Does Bitcoin get a legitimate? I'm telling you, what needs to happen, if you want a legitimate bull market, a bull run, we've got to break above 69,000, which we've struggled to do, hold above it, and never drop below it again, and just keep going. Legitimate breakout. That's what Bitcoin's done in the past. I've talked about it over and over. If we get rejection here, then you can get a reversal, major correction. If we move into recession, the stock market is going to go lower, so Bitcoin will struggle. Fed goes to pivot, rates, and will be later on in the year now. It would be a very bearish event. Before that happens, in all likelihood, the stock market will peak and begin to turn, pricing in a recession. We're going to have problems with the banks. We know that more problems with the banks are coming down the pike. Commercial real estate sector is having problems. The banks have a 50% exposure to that sector. There'll be some major problems coming down the pike. The banks, the commercial real estate crisis is going to spill over into a banking crisis. No, these things are coming. It's going to be hard for Bitcoin to have a new bull market. The stock market doesn't. Things to be paying attention to, but this is really, really important here. And again, suggesting, because we're bouncing off the trend line, suggesting that a possible top is under construction here. And if more and more people start selling and we start getting a reversal, then it's going to be just like what we had back over here at 69,000, where you have people believing we were going to be at 100,000 within a couple of months. 2021, we were being told that we were going to be at 100,000 before 2021 ended, and we peaked in November of 2021 and reversed and immediately dropped in 2 months, 52%. We lost more than half of the value in 2 months. People didn't believe that was possible. So again, we'll see what happens here. This is very, very problematic for a bullish case with Bitcoin going forward unless we break this trend line. Again, going lower, Bitcoin going higher. Negative correlation with the tether dominance. Other problem with this breakout that we've had that's struggling at 69,000 is the Bitcoin volatility oscillator is now getting a bullish signal. Now, it could be, if we attempt a recovery, that we turn down and Bitcoin tries to form a negative divergence on indicators, and we see this turn down and maybe try to form a bullish divergence or have a discrepancy. But I'm just telling you, look, I'm seeing things. Breakdown of our triangle, which I'll be showing you. Bitcoin struggling at the 69,000 area, and some signals are suggesting, hey, maybe we start a reversal here, like right here with the Bitcoin volatility oscillator. When Bitcoin topped out in November 2021, Bitcoin dropped and volatility rose. Okay, when it bottomed in November, Bitcoin bottomed out and volatility declined. We went sideways, and then volatility declined more. and we've been below the signal line, and now we're getting back above it. So again, if we drop back below it, it buys more time. But if we hold above it, well, when we hold above it over here, Bitcoin got a much, much bigger drop, ended up dropping. By the time we got back above that level, in 2 months, we ended up dropping by about 52%, kind of went sideways. Bitcoin and saw volatility end up dropping back down. We had a recovery. Everybody said it was over, and it wasn't, and volatility surged back up. So here, volatility for Bitcoin is starting to rise. You see this. So again, so far we have that peak at 73,000. So if we drop back below the signal line, buy some more time with Bitcoin, but it's also possible we have a peak in if we can't rally back up above 69,000. So some very important things. But this is measuring the amount of volatility on Bitcoin, and volatility rises, Bitcoin goes down. When volatility drops, Bitcoin goes up. Right now, it's starting to turn back up, very similar to the top that we had back in 2021. So we'll be watching. There are some troubling signs at this 69,000 area. Another problem is that we're seeing Bitcoin drop below the 200 period here, back below it. It's been topping around it with the triangle. Now it's dropped below it. We're hitting the 400 period. We came down to the 400 period trying to bounce, but now you're getting the 50 back below the 200 in the 4-hour time frame, and you're getting parameter in the negative region. This is problematic. Again, through the advance and the sideways move, we've seen parameter positive. Now it's going negative. That's not good. That's what happens when you get downtrends or you go sideways. Now, if we recover, got to get back above the 50 and the 200. You got the cloud of resistance there. If we rally back up, that is an area where we might get rejection if we do try to rally off the 400 period moving average. But if we go lower, we might form a divergence. We could try that and get some kind of rebound back up to test the 200 period moving average. In order for Bitcoin to be bullish, you got to get above the 200. You got to get above the 50. The 50's got to get above the 200. They're now crossing over. So another bearish warning sign, as I'm talking about, and we're now seeing parameter go negative. Not a good sign. Holding below the 200, parameter going negative, that's bearish. So again, we start breaking to new lows, you have the possibility of a lower high and a lower low. To rebound and get another lower high, if you rally back up to the 200 or attempt to move towards X of the triangle or whatever, backtest it there, which would be at that same area. But again, you've got a problem now. You're below the 200, parameters in negative territory. If it remains that way, then that is bearish. If it turns back up, turns bullish, then we can go challenge and make new highs. Our problems with Bitcoin right now, with the breakdown of this triangle. Just zoom out. You can see the failed breakout of the triangle. We broke down. We're at the 400 period moving average. Parameter, when we got back above the 200, look what happened. The 50 got above it. Parameter went positive. It's been positive. We firmed up at the center line here, and we bounced off the 200 after breaching it slightly a couple times. They're going sideways. Over here, when we got back above the 200, you had the advance. Parameter was positive, and it wasn't until we had the January reversal and sell-off, it went negative. We dropped below the 200, but then you got back above it. Signals turned back to bullish over here. So again, if it's going to go higher, it's got to get above the 200 here in the 4-hour time frame. Parameter's got to go back into positive territory. It's now going negative. Again, some concerning warning signs with Bitcoin. Break of the triangle to the downside. We've got Moonboy momentum rolling back over now. Again, possibly confirming a lower high. The diversions mark the peak at 73,800. So again, some real problems. We start going into the negative region here. You're going to get a bigger dump down towards the 100 period moving average around just under 50, or right around 57,000, or the 200 down here around 46,000. So again, problematic for a bullish case. If we lose support, you're going to get a bigger dump down to the Tesla 100 period moving average. We've already lost the 50 period moving average. Back above it to have a bullish scenario. Look at the Moonboy Oscillator. I talked about this previously. Again, Moonboy Oscillator, it formed a divergence with the previous peaks there that formed larger divergence, and then you had one in the more recent price action on the Moon Boy oscillator, and it rolled over. I told you we could form a divergence and try to go higher, or you can get a lower high. Well, it's forming the lower high now, and we're getting the lower low with the Moon Boy oscillator. So again, you could get a lower high, lower low with Bitcoin if support breaks there at that 60,000 area. So again, some real problems with Bitcoin. The oscillator has called the tops and bottoms correctly, calling the top back over here 69,000, calling our recent tops and bottoms here that we've talked about at great length and detail. The problem is you have negative divergences on several indicators in the weekly time frame, and again, some indicators don't have it, others do. Here you can see again we've got this divergence, and we're turning down off of the upper channel line here. If we can recover, you don't get confirmation to the hanging man candlestick and the reversal. You can still try to go up and hit the trend line one more time in reverse as possible. Bulls had better step up to the plate. If the bears take us below the 60,000 level, take us below the horizontal support here, then Bitcoin's going to get a bigger dump. The divergences have marked tops and bottoms over and over. Got one right now. Some problems with this 69,000 area. Not only are we struggling at horizontal resistance, but this rising trend line, which is a parallel boundary of the channel right here, and we're struggling at that area. Bulls have to step up to the plate, and even if they do, you may just go up and hit the trend line again and get a top that is similar to what we had over here and over here, where you tried to rally and it failed, and you went back up and you made a new high, and then it failed again. In both of those cases, could see something like that if we don't break 60,000. If you break it, you're going to be doing major technical damage, but some real problems with the divergences that are forming here at these levels. And again, this is a divergence here with the previous peaks over here in January and leading up to January there in late 2023. Now, Bitcoin has had a false breakout of the triangle, and then it came down and it broke down from the triangle, but it has not yet been confirmed. We have not closed below this low right here and gotten a follow through. So we're at this horizontal level of support right here. And, well, I drew that a little high. We're at this, this level of support. And again, you'll need to confirm this if we have a legitimate breakdown, because we are still going sideways. A trading range here. If you watched my last video, again, the weekly bar did not get confirmed to the downside. We've had rally after rally fail, at least so far. The rally up here to the new all-time high failed. Tried to get above 69,000, couldn't. Tried it again, couldn't. Tried it again, couldn't. Keep attempting the 69,000 area, hold above it, and we can't do it. We get above it, but then we can't hold above it. Last attempt took us to the 71,000 area, and we got a failed breakout. So do we have legitimate breakdown here and start moving down towards the 100 period moving average, start breaking this horizontal support area and going lower, or do we attempt to rebound back up? Now, the moving averages at 10 and 20 got another bearish cross. They keep crisscrossing, really just showing we're in this sideways range. But we got a bearish cross. Those are now the resistance levels. They're just above the 50. If they start dropping below the 50 and it looks like they're getting ready to, then that becomes resistance, and it's possible we break down. Or if we rally up to them, they become resistance as well as the lower boundary of the trend line. We could back test it, hit the apex up here or something, and then turn down. The cloud overhead is resistance, our 78.6 Fibonacci of this decline. We keep getting rejection off of it over and over. We straddled along that resistance for quite a while there over here. Did it again here. Signals are going from a green cloud, red cloud, green cloud, red cloud, green cloud. Notice back from bullish to bearish, back and forth, back and forth. This is the area. If we can clear this level, we can get back above the cloud. You can get back above the apex of the triangle, clear the upper boundary, clear the moving averages. Then Bitcoin can try to challenge the highs. But if we break down below this low, then you're going to have a lower high, and a lower low, which could be problematic. So again, if Bitcoin bull market and going to go a whole lot higher, you've got to hold above 69,000. You got to break above it and hold above it and never look back. And so far, Bitcoin has not been able to do that. The breakouts above 69,000 have been unsuccessful, at least so far. But we're still in a sideways trading range, watching that. These are the areas of resistance should we attempt to rally. Remember, the Dow has several unfilled gaps on it. Again, the market go lower before it attempts to rebound back up, but the market can rally. Maybe Bitcoin can too. We'll see what happens here. A couple things be aware of here. On Tuesday, we had Fed Chair Powell speak market session and reaffirming, echoing what he's previously said. Previously, he said no rush to cut for longer. Today, expressing disappointment with the recent inflation data, sending a message that we may need to keep rates higher for longer. Powell talking about a lack of progress. The other thing that could move markets is see Israel respond to the recent attack from Iran. Israeli officials are saying they are going to respond, but that they're making preparations. So if that happens by this weekend or drags out, or if it happens immediately again, there could be some market volatility surrounding that. Concerns about a regional war and things escalating out of control. So again, we'll be watching this closely. There could be a lot of volatility and uncertainty surrounding this if Israel strikes their nuclear facilities or the oil refineries. That could rattle markets. We'll see what happens. There are other targets they could hit, but those are likely targets dismantling their nuclear program or crippling their economy, hitting the refineries. Again, I don't know if sometimes these geopolitical things rattle markets. Other times the market shrugs it off and ignores it. This one could rattle market. And again, it's uncertain when they will strike. When Iran attacked Israel, they waited to do it. When Israel moved into Gaza with a ground campaign, they waited to do it. Is there a delay with this? And we see some kind of rebound, maybe a back test of the trend line or an attempted recovery with Bitcoin. And traditional markets, this happens sooner than later, doesn't rattle markets further. We'll be watching closely. It breaks horizontal support, or if it attempts to back test a triangle or get above the triangle apex that I showed you a moment ago. A sign of strength. Weakness would be if we broke down below horizontal support. Just some things to be paying attention to. The Fed, concerns about inflation. Again, the market was pricing in 7 rate cuts. It's now brought it down. It's been hovering between 1 and 2. Markets and Bitcoin had never corrected. We've seen a little bit of a sell-off with both, but Nasdaq's been down about 5%, and Bitcoin has dropped just under 18%. But Powell, after missing the CPI inflation, showing a lack of concern about it, all of a sudden is now expressing concerns and signaling a rate cut delay. A delay with the pivot, 3 months of hot inflation data with the CPI data, PPI data, wholesale inflation. As Bitcoin is breaking down from the triangle, but still going sideways, it is below the rainbow cloud, has a bearish signal here. The pink line is a momentum line. It's bearish. And the red line is trend line. It is also bearish, and they're both pointing down. So again, we're going to see if we try to get back above those levels, move back up to back test the trend line, the broken trend line, or even try to get above it, or do we start breaking down? But been going sideways. The balance of power shifted to negative and has remained negative with the breakdown, the sell signal that came over here when we first had that first initial sell-off after the peak. They're at the 73,000, just under 73,800. So again, in order for Bitcoin to go higher, the balance of power has to go positive, and you got to get back above the rainbow cloud, and we've got to see the momentum line and the swing trend line both turn back to bullish. They're going back and forth from bullish to bearish, back and forth, really just showing, reflecting this sideways move. NASDAQ is doing the same thing. NASDAQ is in the sideways range, but it's taken out the support levels slightly. Bitcoin has not, but you can see we're just going sideways. Breakout to the upside on the triangle. We turned down, we broke down to the downside on the triangle, that flips signals back to bearish. So again, we continue to have signals going back and forth. Bullish, bearish, bullish, bearish. Right now, we're in the lower portion of the trading range. We've seen momentum turn back down. If we drop here and go into the negative region, then we should get a bigger sell-off and take out horizontal support. If we bounce here and turn back up, then we should either backtest or attempt to push above the apex of the triangle and the moving averages. So we'll be watching. But if Bitcoin does take out horizontal support, if it does go into the negative region with momentum here, then Bitcoin will a bigger sell-off. But right now, we are still going sideways, and we'll be watching to see, do we bounce or do we break out of this trading range? Again, the weekly chart, we got a hanging man the previous week. This last week, it did not get confirmed, so you could still try to rally back up. Eventually get a lower high, lower low, then it might signal that that's all she wrote, and we get a bigger sell-off for Bitcoin, and that this high holds without being exceeded. Now, we have taken out momentum. That is the little red line right there. We're now taking out the trend. The green line has been broken, and we're taking that out with red bars. So still sideways, we are breaking the trend. Momentum has shifted back to bearish, opening the door for more selling, possibly. If we get back above the momentum line and we get back above the downtrend up here, the red line, then challenge the highs and we can go higher. But right now, things have shifted as we come back and test the horizontal support trading range, the lower end of the trading range. So again, the moment of truth, do we start breaking down? And again, if we see Israel respond to Iran's attack from over the weekend, again, that could rattle markets. Sometimes these geopolitical issues do, sometimes they don't. We just simply don't know. But be watching the support here on Bitcoin. Is a delayed response from Israel. Still may attempt to backtest or still attempt to recover. Signals can turn back to bullish. Right now we're seeing them turn to bearish. So there's risk now of breaking horizontal support. About the rainbow cloud in the daily time frame, again going back and forth, and it's bearish at the moment, and the balance of power currently is bearish, validating that. So again, this has got to turn back to bullish if we're going to go higher. Got to turn bearish, and break support if we're going to go lower. Well, if we look at the rainbow cloud, and here, this is the rainbow cloud right here in the daily time frame. If we look at the rainbow cloud in the weekly time frame, it really is defining support level. It's right here underneath where we're at, okay? At the moment, Bitcoin for the week is down 4.69% after, again, it lost the lows of the week last week, about almost 12%, but it rebounded. Still closing down 5.20% last week, but it failed to confirm the hanging man candlestick, as I talked about. We'll see if we get it this week or not. But again, really is what we need to see happen. If the bullish scenario is going to happen, we got to go above 69,000, stay above it, and never look back, and break above this area right here and just keep going. When we pushed above it, we've been seeing distribution and selling. But the rainbow cloud in the weekly time frame is currently at support here at the 60,000 area, and we start losing this area. Critical mass just underneath this area around 57,000. You lose 57,000, you lose 60,000, then Bitcoin is going to go lower. But again, the cloud, since we pushed above it, it has acted as support over and over again, and even when we went sideways, it's acted as support over and over again. So if we're going to go higher, we got to bounce here and not drop below 60,000 and bounce off the rainbow cloud. If we're going to go down, you'll lose the rainbow cloud. It will become resistance like it did over here when we dropped through it. It became resistance, ended up producing the sell-off, and that escalated into something bigger. Rainbow cloud was resistance during the decline with the rallies. It's been support through the advance. Again, the 60,000 area is super important here. And again, if we see the rainbow cloud loss, then we need to see the balance of power in the weekly time frame go negative. If it remains positive, we hold above 69,000, then buyers remain in control. Here, when we lost the cloud, it was eventually confirmed with the balance of power going negative and remaining negative, even with the rebound above critical mass right here in the weekly time frame. You got rejection at the rainbow cloud, and the balance of power remained negative. Again, the weekly chart is still bullish, but this is the support area. And if we break that horizontal support I showed you in the daily time frame, then again, you're going to lose the rainbow cloud here in the weekly time frame. So again, this is a crucial support for Bitcoin. So I'm watching, do we break it or do we bounce? If we bounce, either get another counter trend or try to challenge the highs or get a legitimate breakout. If we break this level, then the risk is you get a much bigger correction or a reversal.